Good evening, everyone. This evening it's Sharon Sherry here, and I have the pleasure of joining Alexandra Ivy for a reading of one of her books for us. Alexandra, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Before I disappear and leave Alexandra to enthrall us with what I know is a great prologue and first chapter, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Like most writers, Alexandra was born with an avid love for reading. Growing up in a small town in the Midwest, she can't remember a time when she didn't have a book in her hand or wasn't dreaming of wild stories in her head. And when she stepped into her first library locally, she thought it was paradise. So many books, so little time. Still, Alexandra didn't plan to grow up and become a writer. She was much more interested in a glorious career as an actress on Broadway. While she undertook a degree in the theatre and performed in summer stock productions, marriage to her college sweetheart and putting her career on hold to raise her family meant the end to her thespian career. But a new creative outlet was required. So, of course, then Alex decided to send her occasional scribblings into a book form and start to shop them around. She spent lots of time, honing her craft and lots of hard work. So she wishes that she was an overnight success, but she wasn't. In searching for her voice, though, Alexandra ended up with 3 names under which she wrote and is now published: traditional Regencies as Debbie Raleigh, steamy historicals as Deborah Raleigh, and contemporary paranormals as Alexandra Ivy. So that's a great backlist for everyone who's about to discover Alexandra today. Now her career spans everything from erotica through to romantic suspense. And when not writing, Alexandra loves to travel. It doesn't matter where, as long as there's no cooking or cleaning involved. And her time with her family is important, and she says they remain her greatest source of inspiration. And since some things never change, when she has a few minutes, you can find her with a book in her hand. Alexandra, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to disappear now and leave you to your reading.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. Today, I am going to read a little bit from my Guardians of Eternity series. It's my paranormal series. The last book just came out last month. I am actually going to read from the first book in the series. I started the series quite a few years ago, and it comes out of my great love for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so I'm going to read from When Darkness Comes, like I said, the first book. And just as a little idea of what the book is about, I'll read a little bit from the blurb. For 341 years, Dante has stood as guardian to the chalice, the mortal woman chosen to hold back the darkness. A terrible twist of fate has now made Abby that woman. 3 hours ago, Dante would have used all his charm to seduce her. Now she is his to protect, and he will do so unto the death. So, When Darkness Comes. Prologue. England, 1665. The scream ripped through the night air, pulsing with a savage agony. It filled the vast chamber and tumbled down the vaulted corridors. Servants cowering in the lower halls of the castle clamped hands over their ears in effort to block out the piercing shrieks. Even hardened soldiers in the barracks made the sign of the moon, the protector of the night. In a southern turret, the Duke of Granville paced across his private library, his shadowed features lined with distaste. Unlike his servants, he did not cross his forehead in an effort to ward off the evil eye. Why should he? Evil had already struck. It had invaded his home and dared to taint him with its filth. The only thing left was to purge the infestation with a ruthless strike. Tugging at the hood to his robe to ensure his marred countenance was fully hidden, he grimly squared his shoulders. Patience, he told himself over and over. Soon enough, the moon would move into the proper equinox, and then the ritual would at last be at an end. The child he had sacrificed to the witches would become their precious chalice, and his suffering would be at an end. Turning abruptly on his heel, he marched back toward the slotted window that offered a fine view of the rich countryside. In the distance, he could witness the faint glow of fires. He shuddered. London. Filthy, peasant-infected London that had was being punished for its foul sins. A punishment that had spewed out of the ramshackle whorehouses and swept its way to his sanctuary. His hands clenched at his side. It was untenable. He was a just man, a godly man who had always been richly rewarded for his purity. To have that vile disease enter his body was a perversion of all that was due to him. That, of course, was the only reason he had allowed the heathens to enter his estate and to bring with them that creature of evil that was currently shackled in his dungeon. They promised him a cure, an end to the plague that was consuming his life, and all it would cost him was a daughter. Chapter 1, Chicago, present day. Oh God, Abby, don't panic. Just don't panic. Sucking in a deep breath, Abby Barlow pressed her hands to her heaving stomach and studied the shards of pottery that lay splintered across the floor. Okay, she broke a vase. Well, perhaps more than broke it. It was more like she shattered, decimated, and annihilated the vase, she grudgingly conceded. Big deal. It was not the end of the world. A vase was a vase, wasn't it? She abruptly grimaced. No, a vase was not just a vase. A priceless vase, one that should no doubt have been in a museum, one that was a dream of any collector, and freaking hell. Panic once again reared its ugly head. She had destroyed a priceless Ming vase. What if she lost her job? Granted, it wasn't much of a job. Hell, she felt as if she were stepping into the twilight zone each time she entered the elegant mansion on the outskirts of Chicago. But her position as companion to Selena LaSalle was hardly demanding, and the pay was considerably better than slinging hash in some sleazy dive. The last thing she needed was to be back in the long lines at the unemployment office. Or worse, dear God, what if she was expected to pay for the vase? Even if there was such a thing as a half-price sale at the local Ming outlet shop, she would have to work 10 lifetimes to make such a sum. Always supposing it was not one of a kind. Panic was no longer merely rearing. It was thundering through her at full throttle. There was only one thing to be done, she realized. The mature, responsible, adult thing to do. Hide the evidence. Covertly glancing around the vast foyer, Abby ensured that she was alone before lowering herself to her knees and gathering the numerous shards that littered the smooth marble. It was not as if anyone would notice the vase was missing, she tried to reassure herself. Selena had always been a recluse, but in the past 2 weeks, she had all but disappeared. If it wasn't for her occasional cameo appearance to demand that Abby prepare that disgusting herb concoction she guzzled with seeming pleasure, Abby might have thought that the woman had done a flip. Certainly, Selena didn't roam the house taking inventory of her various knickknacks. All Abby needed to do was make sure she didn't leave any trace of her crime, and all would be well. No one would ever know. No one. My, I never thought to see you on your hands and knees, lover. A most intriguing position that leads to all sorts of delicious possibilities. A mocking voice drawled from the entrance to the drawing room. Abby closed her eyes and heaved a deep sigh. She was cursed. That had to be it. What else could possibly explain her unending run of bad luck? For a moment, she kept her back turned, futilely hoping Selena's house guest, the utterly annoying Dante, would disappear. It could happen. There was always spontaneous combustion, or black holes, or earthquakes. Unfortunately, the ground didn't open up to swallow him, nor did any smoke detector set off a warning. Even worse, she could actually feel his dark, amused gaze leisurely meandering over her stiff form. Gathering her battered pride, Abby forced herself to slowly turn and keeping the broken vase hidden behind her as she regarded the current bane of her existence. He didn't look like a bane. God's truth, he looked like a delicious, dangerously wicked pirate. Still kneeling upon the floor, Abby allowed her gaze to travel over the black biker boots and long, powerful legs encased in faded denims. Ever higher, she skimmed over the black silk shirt that hung loosely on his torso. Loose, but not loose enough, she acknowledged with a renegade shiver. Much to her embarrassment, she caught herself sneaking peeks at the play of rippling muscles beneath those silky shirts during the past 3 months. All right, maybe she had indulged in more than mere peeks. Maybe she had been staring, gawking, ogling, occasionally drooling. What woman wouldn't? Gritting her teeth, she forced her gaze up to the alabaster face with its perfectly chiseled features, a wide brow, a narrow aristocratic nose, sharply defined cheekbones, and lushly carved lips. They all came together with a fierce elegance. It was a face of a noble warrior, a chieftain, until one noticed those pale silver eyes. There was nothing noble in those disturbing eyes. They were piercing, wicked, and shimmering with a mocking amusement toward the world. They were eyes that branded him a badass as easily as the long raven hair that carelessly tumbled well past his shoulders and the golden hoops he wore at his ears. He was sex on legs, a predator, the sort that chewed up and spat out women like her with pathetic ease. That was, when they bothered to notice women like her in the first place, which was not very damned often. Dante, you have to skulk about like that? She demanded, desperately aware of the priceless clutter just behind her. He made a show of considering her question before offering a faint shrug. No, I don't suppose I have to skulk about, he murmured in his husky midnight voice. I simply enjoy doing so. Well, it's a very vulgar habit. His lips twitched with amusement as he prowled ever closer. Oh, I possess far more vulgar habits, sweet Abby. Several that I don't doubt you would enjoy fully, if only you would allow me to demonstrate. God, she just bet he did. Those slender, devilish hands would no doubt make a woman scream in pleasure. And those lips. Abruptly, she was squashing the renegade fantasy and stirring up the annoyance she most certainly should be feeling. Ugh, you're revolting. Vulgar and revolting? His smile widened to reveal startling white teeth. My sweet, you are in a very precarious position to be tossing about such insults. Precarious? She battled the urge to glance down and discover if any shards of her crime were visible. I don't know what you mean. With a flowing elegance, Dante was on his knees before her, those disturbing fingers lifting to lightly stroke her cheek. His touch was cool, almost cold, but it sent a startling flare of heat searing through her. Oh, I think you do. I seem to recall a rather precious mean vase that used to sit on that table. Tell me, lover, did you hawk it or break it? Damn, he knew. She desperately attempted to think of some feasible lie to explain the missing vase, or for that matter, any lie, feasible or not. Unfortunately, she'd never been particularly skilled at lying, and it didn't much help that his lingering touch was turning her brain to mush. Don't call me that, she at last lamely muttered. What? His brows lifted. Lover. Why? For the obvious fact that I'm not your lover. Not yet. I want to thank everyone who stopped by to listen to When Darkness Comes, and I have a clue for you. I think so. Thank you very much.